Now, Trump, or should I say unser Anführer, that's my butchered attempt to speak German, has been busy lately. Well, busy for the past month since he's been elected, since he has issued at least 19 executive orders so far, probably a lot more by now since that was recorded at least a month ago. But seriously, the moment he took office, he was like, nigga, let's do this. Speaking of which, his healthcare bill sadly failed. Let's just blame all the Republican moderates who didn't get on board and hopefully, try again another time, champs. That's the only thing I don't like about the Republican Party but kind of admire about the Democratic Party is that they're unified. Well, more unified than us, at least. It always seems like Republicans can't get together to do something as a group, a party, without someone disagreeing with something and then being like, nigga, fudge this. Yet Democrats are like, yeah, let's get together. But you know, that video I wanted to make on Trump's cabinet weeks ago, but that'll have to wait because, well, I really have to look in it deep. Like deep. I know it's very simple, like 3 Google searches and I'm good, right? That's usually what the usual videos I make take, really. But no, not really. When someone calls someone a Nazi like they did Steve Bannon, I had to take time to look into those claims and see evidence of him doing anything because people have said he's practically done Nazi salutes, and I'll have to look in depth at his policy positions and how they can even be perceived as racist or fascist, along with other members of his cabinet and claims against them like Betsy DeVos, who is our official Secretary of Education, who people like my dad, my liberal dad, say wants to privatize everything. One person I heard practically said she wants to abolish that public educational system. Look, it's pretty obvious those claims are bogus, but I gotta look in deep anyway. And I have to deal with every member of his cabinet, so that's gonna take a lot more than 3 Google searches. So I basically have to go on deep. Like real deep with these ideologies and beliefs these people have and why people just really don't like them, say they're unqualified and such. But for the most part, it's like when people say Trump is fascist. That's obviously a crazy claim with no proof, and I could just clearly move on because that's not a real argument since there's not really sufficient evidence of that in any way, shape, or form. Also, I have to do this with every single member of the cabinet, including, Neil Gorsuch, who is just confirmed on the Supreme Court, so I'm actually happy about that, so yeah. Also, the reason it's taking me so long to do that is because I still have to write up this research paper about the KKK, which is overdue by now, and I have this history assignment. And fun news, I have to take the SATs in like 3 days. No, wait a minute. 2 days now. I'm a nervous wreck. Help me. Please help me. I'm good as it relates to English, but last time, dang, I didn't know any of the math stuff they did. It was like basically Algebra 2. At the time, I only knew Algebra 1, so it was a mess. But like I said, I got English. I got it. Also, a lot of what I've been reading about this cabinet has been really based on opinion, not necessarily hard facts, so I really have to look at it objectively to really measure up these people, which is very hard because the information I'm getting is subjective and based on opinion, not fact. But I think I'll just look for arguments for and against each member of the cabinet, then pull that up together in some video of all of it just clumped into one big cell and have you, the listener, decide. But one thing we can all agree, whether we like those in the cabinet or not, is that we want them to do a good job and not fail. Because if they fail, it'll be bad for us, the American people. So, let's hope they all do a good job no matter what. Now, let's talk about the ban, Trump's Muslim ban. Well, quote-unquote Muslim ban that some have been, well, really upset about. Like, extremely upset about. Now, for one thing, protests like this aren't really going to solve anything. If you're going to go out and protest, I get how you're expressing your opinion, but honestly, it's not really going to impact anyone or make real change. But then again, that's just my little opinion. Now, for one thing, it isn't a complete ban on Muslim immigration or Muslim ban at all, which hopefully many have figured out by now. At the beginning, only 7 nations were under the temporary ban, and only one of those nations, Iran, is one of the countries with the highest population of Muslims. Trump simply didn't ban the other countries with the highest percentage of Muslims, which are Indonesia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Egypt, Turkey, Algeria, and Morocco. The other 6 nations he did ban, Libya, Syria, Sudan, Somalia, Iraq, and Yemen. Well, now Iraq isn't even on the list of nations banned anymore, so I guess you could say 6 nations remaining. Now, for one thing, this is temporary, which many have figured out by now, hopefully, and bars citizens from these countries entering the United States for the next 90 days and suspends the admission of all refugees for 120 days. So, that's about 3 to 4 months ideally. Now let's go into why he did it, because that's the most important question to answer. Why? And to answer this, let's go to what Trump himself has said. I got the quote right here. I was actually going to read this in a Trump voice. I actually decided not to because that would be terrible. It would be just terrible. Quote, "America is a proud nation of immigrants, and we will continue to show compassion to those fleeing oppression, but we will do so while protecting our own citizens and borders. America has been the land of the free and home of the brave. We will keep it free and keep it safe, as the media knows but refuses to say. My policy is similar to what President Obama did in 2011 when he banned visas for refugees from Iraq for 6 months. The 7 countries, well of course then 7, named in the executive order are the same countries previously identified by the Obama administration as sources of terror. To be clear, this is not a Muslim ban as the media is falsely reporting. This is not about religion, this is about terror and keeping our country safe. There are over 40 different countries worldwide that are majority Muslim that are not affected by this order. We will again be issuing visas to all countries once we are sure we have reviewed and implemented the most secure policies over the next 90 days. So that's to let you know this isn't a waste of time or anything. And finally, I have tremendous feeling for the people involved in this horrific humanitarian crisis in Syria. My first priority will be to protect and serve our country, but as president, I will find ways to help all those who are suffering." End quote. Now, some have said Obama didn't really ban Iraqi refugees from entering the country completely, but he made it extremely difficult for them to enter, which I would argue is along the lines the same thing as what Trump said, since he said he banned visas for those refugees. But according to the Washington Examiner, I had to say that because I'm about to quote some shiz more. And don't worry, I checked, it's reliable. It has a bit of a right-leaning bias, but very often uses accurate information, so we're safe for the most part. Anyway, it states, quote, "President Obama has barred huge groups of potentially dangerous immigrants from entering the United States at least 6 times, undercutting his claim that barring Muslims from terrorist countries, as Donald Trump has promised, is un-American." In his first ban, according to the search of White House records, Obama has instituted a ban on, quote, "immigrants or non-immigrants covered by a larger United Nations travel ban." He has also included those on an economic sanctions list. Most countries were Muslim. He cited the very same section of the law that many critics of his policies have asked him to use, and that would be Section 212 of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952. And that states, quote, "Whenever the president finds that the entry of aliens or any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, the president may, by proclamation and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions that he may deem to be appropriate." And it goes on as it relates to Obama, saying, quote, "He used the same provision 5 other times, one in 2011, which Trump cited, twice in 2012, and twice in 2014. In those, he targeted people aiding Iran, Syria, Crimea, and those involved in war crimes." End quote. And to be more specific, he suspended the Iraqi refugee program for 6 months over fears of terrorism, and, well, rightfully so. And as I stand, and as you all know now because you're not retards, Iran and Syria are included on Trump's immigration ban also. Now, before I say anything else, read the 7-page executive order. Read it, my nigga. Read it. That's the problem with a lot of people, especially at the beginning of all this mess. They assume what it is, but I can bet most haven't really taken the time to read the actual immigration ban to see what it actually says. And well, I kind of realized that while making this video and planning it beforehand. I mean, if I can read and tell people to read an 85-page report from the Justice Department about the Michael Brown case, I can read a 7-page executive order everyone is losing their minds over, and you can do. Now, that's the gist of things. Very simple. Yes, but not simple enough for this video to be short, because you know me, you know I like to blab. At the beginning of this video, I blabbed hard because there's more. Now, before all of that, or at least before we get deeper into this issue, let's get into what I think. Well, after, because I asked what my boyfriend thought, and I said I'd quote him in my video, so I kinda have to. He said, quote, "I think it's a good thing. It protects us from possible terrorists." And then I asked him if it was racist, and he said, "I understand why it's racist, but well, that's a bit technical. If it's possible for us to just run background checks on these people," and he meant in the case if it's just possible to do whatever and without the ban, then it's a little racist. And he went on, quote, "But if we can, it's in our best interest to ban these people to protect us." It was the same thing with the camps and the Japanese Americans. Yes, it wasn't right, but we didn't have much of a choice. It was an attempt to protect the majority of Americans. Though bad, of course. And then I asked him again if it was racist, because I drill hard when I do questions. Like, if you don't give me a yes or no straight up, I will ask and ask and ask and nag and nag and nag. And his answer was, "It depends on the fact if we have a better choice, but we're just neglecting it. And essentially banning these people anyway," is what he meant. Now, in times like these, I wish my friend was still around. She was a Muslim American. Her parents were originally from Arabia, and she'd really be the perfect person to ask for something like this. We lost touch a while ago, so just one of those things. But I think I have some Muslim subscribers, so I hope they tell me what they think. I got one pal from Egypt. Shout out to Egypt. The fun thing about that is Egypt isn't on the ban, so he can come here anytime. And honestly, with me, I kind of like and not like the temporary immigration ban for various reasons. I honestly wish more countries were added to the list, like Tunisia, a hotbed for terrorism, Afghanistan, which is torn apart, riddled with the Taliban, a place where 99% of the Muslims there support the idea of Sharia law being the law of the land, Pakistan, basically a nation the US has accused of sheltering terrorist groups, and was spoken about briefly as it relates to possibly being on the immigration ban to begin with, and the same nation where one of the San Bernardino terrorists came from, and of course Saudi Arabia, after all that government has done that seems to somehow always involve others related to Islamic terrorism. Coincidental, almost like Wahhabist magic. But I basically think the ban doesn't go far enough, and it doesn't really help in my opinion when Iraq was taken off the list. Then again, this is one of my opinions, I kind of do think we should and could take in Christian and non-Muslim refugees like the Yazidis, but only because there's a very, very good chance they're not extremists or radicals that would commit terror, since those groups are a part of religions that hold different ideologies than that of radicalism. In fact, I'd argue they actually contradict radicalism. I mean, I can bet most Christians coming from countries like Pakistan or Afghanistan that want to come to the United States wouldn't then go shoot up a bunch of people in the name of Jesus Christ for the want of a Christian theocracy to be implemented in the West. Not to mention the fact most people who even think like that and are Christian actually come from Uganda, I think. But of course I had to double check that. And also, I don't think a temporary ban on immigration won't really do anything unless we do what needs to be done in the meantime, which is all part of Trump's plan, which is amazing and beautiful. Just beautiful. I mean, think about it. If we literally wait for months and do nothing, the ban is over. It would have been useless, right? But no need to fear that. And this time, I really do hope a lot of work is done to really edge up the vetting system. Even more so, make it as best as possible 110% foolproof, and also address the problem with growing Islamic-related terrorism, and not seemingly deny the problem like many have for a long time, and speak a lot on solutions like proper assimilation into Western culture, making sure these people adapt to our Western culture, because the cultures these individuals from these countries come from have ingrained societal ideologies that are very bad and incompatible with Western culture, in my opinion. Now, that's part of why I don't think multiculturalism in the sense of one not adapting to the majority culture and keeping their own little ideological culture doesn't work. But that's another video for another day, like a lot of the videos I promised, but takes so long to make. Now, Trump has said it would be a complete shutdown of Muslim immigration, but of course that would never really happen, and even with what he already has and come up with, Democrats still tried to stop it. Chris Murphy introduced a bill that sought to defund President Trump's new executive order temporarily banning refugees and migrants from these, well now 6 Muslim-majority nations from entering the United States. And as I say this, I just want to mention this information is from the Washington Post, so yeah. The bill that he introduced would have withheld any funding that would be used to enforce Trump's executive order. According to a description of the measure circulated by Senate aides, it declared the executive order illegal, arguing that it is in violation of the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act, which banned discrimination against immigrants on the basis of national origin. It also says you can't discriminate against them on the basis of race, sex, nationality, as I just said, place of birth, or place of residence. But it doesn't say you can't discriminate based on religion. So in theory, Trump really could have made a complete and temporary Muslim immigration ban, actually, since it's technically legal. But with the amount of opposition he faced on this, and even getting it through, and not even being able to keep Iraq on the list, I doubt that he'd been able to, or of course, as I said, even put other nations on the list. So, just one of those things. But in relation to the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act, I honestly think it's extremely safe to say his idea isn't to keep these people from coming to America simply because of where they came from. He doesn't want an Iranian to not come here simply because they're Iranian, or a Syrian to be denied entry to the United States simply because they're Syrian. It's just simply to temporarily withhold them from coming here because we can't really trust whether they aren't terrorists or not, simply because the countries they come from have very big concerns as it relates to terrorism and extremism. And Obama thought so too, as it relates to Iraq and Syria, so basically, it's not because of their nationality or race, but the potential threat they pose because those countries aren't exactly, well, stable, to put it in simple terms. Also, the argument can be made that it does qualify as discrimination based on nationality, which this person in the original article claimed under the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act would be illegal. Then President Obama, in turn, probably broke the law doing something similar, and citing the same 1952 Nationality Act as Trump. Then again, Obama actually did break the law a few times, so anyway, my last 2 cents on the act would be this wonderful, wonderful piece of it I just love so much that I have to read out loud to you. I just have to. This is the first page of it, and in this section it reads, quote, "In order to protect Americans, the United States must ensure that those admitted to this country do not bear hostile attitudes toward it and its founding principles. The United States cannot and should not admit those who do not support the Constitution or those who would place violent ideologies over American law. In addition, the United States should not admit those who engage in acts of bigotry or hatred, including, quote, honor killing, other forms of violence against women, or the persecution of those who practice religions different from their own, or those who would oppress Americans of any race, gender, or sexual orientation." That right there really lays out the purpose of this entire immigration ban very, very clearly, and bears the real reason as to why we need it. Now, like I've said many times, I do wish it applied to more countries, but I'm happy we at least got something. And in this time, hopefully a lot of work is done to improve the system in a way that would allow us to accept as many refugees as we can without accidentally importing terrorists to our own nation. I mean, I'd be the first one to cry and get upset if months go by, the ban is no longer there, and then we let in refugees and we basically have another Germany or Sweden situation. In a way, to me, it's almost as if Europe isn't even Europe anymore. And that recent terrorist attack in London just really speaks to me as it relates to that. Also, I found that driving into crowds and then going on a stabbing rampage is becoming more common than actually bombing, which is very, very strange. I mean, this recent increasing threat of Islamic-based terrorism has really made me think it's almost useless to pray such things don't happen anymore. But I'll try not to be discouraged. I mean, I just hope all of you out there are safe. Stay as safe as possible. I mean, I care about my meeps. I want my meeps to be safe. Oh, and to my Canadian viewers, because I have a lot of Canucks out there, I love you guys. I love you. I heard about M103 being passed in the House of Commons. I've seen videos of people explaining how it's currently being played out, and I'm honestly hoping and praying for the best, which I know is probably delusional because, well, it'd actually take a miracle to stop any of that, so yeah. But I guess it's nice to believe in miracles sometimes. I don't know. This is the weird thing with being a Christian. Sometimes prayer seems useless, but at the same time anything is really possible. I'm always one to be optimistic to the point it annoys everyone, because I have this ingrained idea in my brain that no matter how bad things get, it'll always eventually get better and lead to a brighter ending. But it might. In some places it did. In America it certainly did. And I hope it does for Canada, Germany, Sweden, and Ireland, Romania. Didn't forget about you, baby. The United Kingdom, France, and so on. Speaking of France, I'm really liking Marine Le Pen. She's basically the female French version of Donald Trump. It's really amazing. I even follow her on Twitter. It's awesome. Funny thing is, though I forgot a lot of my French, I read her tweets. I can actually understand what she's saying. Even though I know if I try to explain it in English, I'd be half wrong with each word and sentence. Also, probably everyone has heard about the US military strikes hitting airbase in Syria in response to the chemical attacks. That boy Bashir al-Assad is at it again. I have a really good in-depth article from The Guardian on that, so I'll drop that in the description along with a whole bunch of things, including someone else's video they did with their own thoughts on the travel ban. The next few months will be a joyride, and this is just the beginning. Luck me wish for the SATs, because though the PSATs gave me a living nightmare, I feel pretty confident that this year with the SATs is going to be different. I take them Tuesday. Luck me wish.
الله أكبر